Grace and peace with you all, church family. Our devotion today begins with a story. It was the other night, and I awoke to the sound of distant thunder, and as time went by, the rain began, and the thunder grew closer, and the lightning began to flash. And in a panic, I reached for my phone to pull the weather app up, to check the radar, to see how long this red blob of a thunderstorm was going to stay over Laurel. It had consumed all of my ability to sleep. I could find no rest. And as I lay there awake, waiting for the storm to pass, it occurred to me how this storm that has caused so much stress and anxiety is much like the current situation we find ourselves in today. We are anxious. Our normal state of living has ceased to exist, and we are taking precautionary steps to stop the spread of COVID-19. And in ways we are fearful. There are troubling times with sickness and death of loved ones, seclusion and isolation, and loss of jobs and livelihood. Like a troubling storm that keeps us awake, we are constantly checking media outlets, wondering when will we be well again. The storm is here. The rolling thunder of fear draws near. It reminds me of a story of the disciples and Jesus that is found in Luke 8:22 through 25. They are traveling by boat, and Jesus lays down to rest. But in the midst of his rest, a windstorm comes, and the waves are rushing. Water is pouring in over the edges of the boat, and the disciples are frantic. They wake Jesus up and say, "Master, Master, we are perishing." They have lost all hope. But it was Jesus who awoke and rebuked the wind and the waves and calmed the storm. What the disciples had thought was the end, Jesus was there to bring stillness to the storm and restore peace. You may find yourself in the midst of the stress and anxiety where it feels like the waves are crashing in on you, and it is hard to find hope in this moment. But I want to remind you that just as Jesus was in the boat with those disciples facing the storm, God is with us now, holding us close in the midst of our uncertainty. We can turn to God. We can have hope that this storm within our lives will cease. We can live into the promise of everlasting life, and we can be the body of Christ to one another. So I encourage you to check in on one another, to pray for one another, and to know that you are not alone, because God is here to provide stillness to this storm and peace.